Hello and welcome back to the Casual Fanatic. Today's video is who's better? So I'm just going to be comparing between two different players. I got some of my friends to send me a couple of lists, some comparisons they wanted. I thought about adding some of my own, but I was like, let's stick to this. Let's see how the concept works out. If you guys enjoy it, I'll make more. I'll do it with some old players, some legends of the game, some of the greatest of all time. I'll do it with comparing different kind of players like young versus old, potential versus this. Give it a little bit of an experimental player, like a comparison at the end of the video. It's one of the ones that's I feel like is interesting and is gonna rise in heat in this debate over the next few years and probably over the next decade. But just for now, I was thinking initially whether I should do this video with a statistical background, with a in-depth like look at their numbers. But I was like, I feel like that starts to make some of the arguments a little bit more objective, as well as looking too into like straight up trophy for trophy or stat for stat, because in general there's a lot of other reasons and aspects to that then that affects the opinion rather than purely eye test subjective reasoning as how I personally prefer. Because at the end of the day, I'm in this YouTube game, I'm trying to cultivate an understanding from my audience that they respect my opinion, and you guys are going to be watching the videos to see my thought process and my opinions on players, on games, and whatever, right? So therefore, I'm just going to take the subjective approach on these comparisons. So I feel like that was a little bit long-winded, but anyway, I'll try and go through these in like brief segments. I won't go too in-depth into each one. So first of all, Trent versus Reece James. Now I feel like, especially over the last maybe 7-8 months, this has kind of been a dead topic of debate, right? Because Trent's been having a low season and Reece has basically been injured. I think the consensus was towards the end of last season, where Trent had the mare in the Champions League final and people were starting to poke holes in Trent's defensive game. It was pretty consensus that it was Reece James is the best right back in the Premier League, or at least competing with Kyle Walker rather than with Trent, who was the unanimous one maybe 2 seasons ago, right? Because of the pure output numbers he had. And for me, Trent is my favorite right back to watch. I think he's so special as a talent, and his ceiling is so high. But that being said, it has to be Reece James who's the better out of the two. He has the defensive side, he has the physical side to his game. He's amazing going forward. He has delivery on both feet almost. He can add in goals. Almost last season, that's the kind of output you expect from Trent. That's what Reece James was able to output, as well as the fact that he can play at so much more solid defensively. We'll see how Trent progresses and shapes his game over the next few years, but for now, it's Reece James. Second, Saka versus Foden. Saka and Foden, this is an interesting one, because if you maybe asked 3 months ago, I think most people would put this really close, if not give the edge to Foden. I think fast forward to now, I think the majority would give it to Saka. And I'm going to be with the majority. I think Foden, as a pure technician, I think is up there with like the most talented players of his generation, if not the most talented player of his generation, as a pure technical footballer. But I just think the output and the tactical flexibility that Saka has is going to keep putting him over the edge for the foreseeable future. This kid's already on 11 goals and 10 assists in the Prem, let alone all competitions. And Foden is not at that level, but he is still outputting in terms of goals. It's a lot more in spurts, and it is in a Man City team. But I think this is much closer than people give it credit for, and will be giving it credit for, especially towards the end of the season, because Saka could be winning Player of the Year. But I do think Saka is slightly above Foden right now. And as well, the two-footed aspect is very important. The fact that he can go both ways. And he's a very unique player that fits into every team. Foden, clearly, even right now, Man City can't even fit in properly. So that's the thing, right? I feel like if Guardiola had Saka right now, he would start. He has Foden, and he doesn't start him all the time. Now, this one is kind of interesting. And this kind of goes into where we're talking about, like, players from before, right? So, prime Thiago Silva versus prime Sergio Ramos. Now, when I say prime, I don't mean take their career and their body of work and compare them. I'm talking about peak prime Thiago Silva versus peak Sergio Ramos. And we're just talking about peak. I think it has to still be Sergio Ramos. I was initially in my head, I was like, maybe this should be something. Maybe Thiago Silva had a really insane peak, but Thiago Silva's kind of been that similar level. The only difference, like with what you're seeing now to what he was the fact that he had the athleticism, he had the recovery pace as well, which of course is essential. But he was never a. I don't want to talk down on Thiago Silva because I want to just praise Sergio Ramos for what he managed to do, because Sergio Ramos, it was the most solid defender, as well as the fact that he's able to be part of the build-up. He's able to carry the ball. He's calm under pressure. He's a leader. He scores in crucial moments. Yes, scoring is not exactly what I'm looking for from a centre-back, but when it's in the volume that Sergio Ramos got, it becomes a bonus. You see? So, like, yeah, when people are talking about Gary Cahill scores goals, it's like, yeah, he'll score 5 in this season, and then next season he'll score 2, then next season maybe he'll score 7. Yes, that's helpful, but that's not what I really care about here when we're talking about it as a comparison. But when it's Ramos and you're almost getting double digits on a year-to-year basis, no, that's a factor. That's fair enough. And he was a penalty taker. And in terms of as a pure defender, I think out and out, I think Thiago Silva is one of the most intelligent defenders I've seen, at least of this generation, and I think he does edge Ramos in that sense. But pure 1v1 defending, tackling, the athleticism, it has to be Ramos. And that's why I will still give the edge on peak performance between the two to Ramos. Chilwell versus Shaw. 2 injury-prone left-backs. Both suffered some tough injuries. Luke Shaw, obviously a devastating one back, but he has been more fit as of the last few years. But he's been very inconsistent. You get 6 months on, 6 months off, 6 months on, 6 months off. Those 6 months on, this debate is not a debate. Luke Shaw is clearly the better player. I think he's higher technical level. I think he has more athleticism. He's stronger build. He's better defensively. Much more solid in 1v1s. And bigger body to contest aerially. Now, the 6 months off, this is also a clear debate. And it's a Chilwell's winning. But then again, is Chilwell going to be fit for those 6 months, right? And I think you have to give it for Shaw. It's more consistently fit. As well as the fact that Shaw is the better player when he is performing at that level. I think it's closer than people will give it credit, and I think a lot of people nowadays everyone's so short term with their opinions, and it's all you flip all the time, and everyone's so reactionary. But let's be honest, when you're watching and when you observe Luke Shaw playing at his best, and this is in big games too. Don't just say it's against the smaller teams that he does this. No, it's against big teams too. He provides such a positive outlet. His technical ability and control from left back is immense. His link-up play when they are firing and he has a consistent player playing in front of him is elite. And again, we saw it just yesterday against Fulham. He's created at the end, the assist. When he is getting in those positions, when he's in that form, he's immense. And he's always in the right time, in the right place. And I think he's been one of the most consistent elements of that back four over the last 2-3 years, despite the fact that he has on and off, let's say, months and periods of time. So I give that to Shaw. Pedri versus Bellingham. Now, if you've watched some of my videos on this channel, you'll know that my favorite player right now in the world is Pedri. So I'll just say it straight away. This is Pedri, between Pedri and Bellingham. If I go to like more projecting their career, I think Pedri being tied in with the Barcelona aspect could end up being a problem for him. Because if they do fall apart, where does he then move to? How does he then resurface there? And how does he restructure around the new team? I think City and Arsenal and United, every team would be ready to grab him up for 150 straight up right now. But him being tied into Barcelona, it's like, how long do you ride the wave? Do you have to jump the ship? Do they stabilize? And then do you become part of the rebuild of Barcelona? That's where the question mark come in with Pedri's long-term career. And Bellingham, I just think that the physical stature, the fact that this kid is so blessed, he's like 6'1", he's physical, the way he carries the ball is immense. He can carry it so calmly and glides through midfield. And I think those are going to be characteristics that could take him to whatever heights he wants to be. I think it's going to mean that he probably transitions into being a less defensive player, even though you'd think the physicality means he can be more defensive, whatever. But I don't think he can transition into being such a deep player. I think he's going to have to be further forward to be that more advanced playmaker. That physicality in his game is going to be so important. His eye for goal, the way he reads the ball, the movement of the balls in the box, his runs are intelligent. and he has an eye for and he understands how the ball and how the team when it shifts, you can see him make those runs in the blind side of the defender. You can see him drop deeper, shift in, make the run in. Sometimes he pops out to start to link up the play again, and that's kind of the area that he wants to operate in. It's very similar to the way Pedri wants to operate just right in front and just play make and push everything in between, stuck in the defense and go past, and then move left and right and transition the ball well, and being so press resistant and so creative, and an eye for a pass, and his touch is perfect. And I just think that the type of player Pedri is, it's a player that just has a seamless understanding of the game, seamless understanding of the tempo and the fluidity of how football can work, and is so tactically adept for the upcoming generation of football. It's going to be a close one for the rest of their careers. They're going to be compared, but I do give the edge to Pedri, and I think he'll maintain that. Benzema versus Suarez. Now, for me, if you talk peak, it's not a contest. It's Suarez. That his peak at Barcelona, I think it was the 14-15 or the 15-16 season. Whichever one he beat Ronaldo to the Golden Boot. Those 2 years, and of course the Liverpool 13-14 season, which is still probably the best Premier League season I've seen. That's just peak level of striker play that I don't think any of the players I have on this list even match up to. Well, maybe the last one, but that was an elite level that no one can touch. I think Benzema, over a body of work, had more longevity in his game, and I think generally as a playmaker, he's probably better, even though assist numbers will definitely show Suarez having a higher assist rate. But he played in some very high-scoring teams in general, and Benzema also, of course, played with the output monster, right? And, of course, had other times where he had to sacrifice in certain positions and everything. But he obviously has more trophies, obviously has more awards. He did get his Ballon d'Or. I do think Suarez was a Ballon d'Or level player, just played in a very unfortunate era. I think Benzema really got the timing very right. In the sense of, you got in just right after the year where you can't make the case for Ronaldo, Messi, but also just before you could give, and in a down year for like Mbappe, and just before you can start getting into the next generation. So you really got in on the right time, as well as the fact that the storyline all matched up, and you have to commend that Champions League run. Those 5 or 6 games that he had, he was immense, and he was clutch, and he was essential for them to win it. Now, do I think he's a better player than Suarez? Because I didn't get any specifications whether this was a peak comparison or if it was a body of work or if it was current. Because if it's current, it's obviously Benzema is still playing at that highest level. I do think it has to be Suarez. Goals are going to be higher, assists are going to be higher in terms of the output. I think he had a higher peak level. Benzema, I think, was a better playmaker. Internationally, neither of them really did much. Suarez, I guess, did do a little bit more because Benzema really wasn't in that French squad. Suarez at least progressed with Uruguay in a couple of tournaments. So overall, it has to be Suarez. I think he was the more gifted player. Benzema, you have to give him credit for his late surge at the end of his career. I don't think he was in these kind of debates before last year. I don't think he was even in debate with Aguero's, Rooney's. I think he was still a level below them. But the fact that he's had that run and he's accomplished what he's accomplished over the last 2 years goes to show the level that he was really at, that we never really got to see over a full career because he was stifled for the betterment of the team still, because, of course, if you sacrifice Benzema's talent to make sure Ronaldo plays at the highest level, of course that makes sense, and it succeeded and it worked. So I don't want to sound like I was bitter because Benzema lost out for Ronaldo. No, that makes sense. But it has to be. Suarez is better than Benzema. Simple as that. Vinicius versus Rashford. Now, this is only a debate that's happened over the last few months. And Rashford's been in peak goal-scoring form. There's no one right now that's scoring at his level. Well, now Haaland's just scored 8 goals in 2 games. So it's obviously going to be Haaland as the peak goal scorer. But this is an interesting debate because it's the 2 probably most important characteristics of wingers and outside forwards is 1v1 duels, like winning your 1v1 battles, your ability to get past your man, and ball striking. It's the 2 differences here. I do think Vinicius, though, has decent ball striking, and he has a variety there. I think Rashford, of course, is at a higher technical level as a ball striker. I think he's one of the best in the world at that. is just as an overall player, who could you incorporate in more teams and who has the higher level to reach. I think Rashford is such a dangerous transitional player, but so is Vinicius. I do think Rashford is a little bit higher on that level because of his runs are a little bit more intelligent and has more variety to it because he can run from left to inside, inside to out, right to inside. We've only really seen Vinicius operate on that left channel. Now that being said, I do think Vinicius has a much higher technical skill level, much higher technical competency, and I do think he's more adaptable, more systems. Now, of course, I say that by Rashford, any transitional team, any transition kind of play, that works, right? But I don't think the defensive position you would put Rashford in, the way you could fit him into teams, the way he could link up, I don't think in a possession-based system would be the same. I think he offers a great attack output, but I don't think in a possession-based team he would provide the same level of high-level football as Vinicius could. And I think he can just link up more, and we've seen it now on the highest level. We've seen him do it in the Champions League. We've seen him do it game after game, all the way to a final, and now he's doing it again this year. I just think you have to give the edge to Vinicius. He's younger as well, which means there's more room to grow, there's a higher ceiling. I think Rashford will keep the output high from here on out, unless, of course, injuries occur. But Vinicius almost matched that output last year, you know? And I just think that generally the press resistance that Vinicius has will mean that Vinicius will keep edging out Rashford. And I just think Vinicius is that just slightly higher echelon of wingers. Now, someone else who would be a much more interesting debate, maybe not right now, but coming up very soon, would be someone like Rafael Leao. Because he has all of these characteristics. He can play make, he can link up the play, he's strong, he's physical, he can win his 1v1s, he has great ball striking. He's going to be someone that's going to be very interesting when he makes his next move, because I don't think he will meet his ceiling or the popularity and the stardom that he could gain at AC Milan. Even though he's kind of talked about enjoying Milan and wanting to stay, that could just be agent talk and whatever, trying to get a higher fee and all of this, higher contract, but we'll see about it. Thomas Partey versus Rodri. Last season, we're not debating this. Now, we've seen some couple holes in the Rodri game. His individual 1v1 defending is not great. He does read the game exceptionally well. Of course, he is press resistant. His passing and tempo control is amazing. And his range of passing is solid. I just think that, in general, Partey has so much more to his game. The physicality, this pace. He also is a great passer. He's a great facilitator. The duels as well that he wins, I think I'm not sure again of the numbers, because that's why I didn't want to include the numbers, because then I could start looking at pass percentages, duel win percentages, and tackle percentages between these two, and you can kind of come to a conclusion, and whoever that would be the objectively better player right now, right? But I just think that also then factors in the team, the system they're playing in, who they played against, where they're being employed, how many minutes, what positions. So just the eye test, I will say that I think Partey is a more complete player. I think Rodri is a beautiful player to watch in certain systems, and I think when that City team is flowing, I think the Rodri has a higher level of competency, technical ability that he can deliver and extract. And I think that Partey put into that same system wouldn't be able to produce the same. But that same thing goes for Rodri. I don't think he can produce what Partey does for this Arsenal team. So I will say that because the fact that that City team can operate without Rodri to an extent, in the sense of they don't need the elite level of Rodri, I think they can plug in other players and still do well. Partey, Arsenal don't have that replacement for. You see when Jorginho plays, I'm not saying Jorginho is a bad player, just he cannot do that Partey role. And I think that's why you have to give the edge for Partey. Thomas Partey is the better player out of the two. Now this one's more, I don't want to do too many more of these because I feel like the video is already getting on there, getting long, and I don't want to make these videos too long. I want to keep them a little bit shorter, and then I'll probably split up this list. But I'll just do one more because I wanted to give the teaser for how this could work. Is Henry versus Mbappe, and this is more of a projection. Henry is obviously still the better player. Obviously, he's, right now in the history books, he's still higher ranked, let's say, of the greatest of all time. But if you project what Mbappe will be, again, don't think this is a debate. I think on the career trajectory that Mbappe is on, he'll smoke Henry. He'll be so much further ahead than Henry. People are probably going to be talking about Mbappe as a top 20 player of all time when he's all said and done, because I'm projecting that Mbappe probably wins 2 or 3 minimum Ballon d'Ors. He'll break records for sure. Already PSG all-time top scorer, and he'll just keep breaking these records. He'll be French all-time top scorer by probably the next tournament, if not the one right after. No, definitely by next tournament, right? I think he's like 12 or 15 off or something, which he'll easily get. Then in terms of, like, as a player, I just think they're both obviously very similar in the sense of they're both great transitional players. They can both do so many things. They have so many things in their attacking arsenal. They have great ball striking. They can weave in and out. There's a physicality to their game. They both have so much pace. They can play make. They can interlink. They can play in multiple positions. I just think Mbappe as a pure dynamic 1v1 player, I think he's going to be so elite and so dangerous. And he has such a high elite level of ball striking and a clutchness to him. And I just think that if Mbappe keeps working on these parts of his game, I just think that Mbappe is going to end up reaching higher levels and he's going to win more things. I think this is going to be a debate we're going to keep seeing over the next few years. Every year on year, we're going to get closer to seeing them kind of level out. Obviously, right now, the gap is still pretty large because everything Mbappe has, Henry has, plus more. So I just think that right now, obviously, the ceiling is up here for Henry. Mbappe is still here, but I just think the ceiling might be a little bit higher for Mbappe. Now, I have many more of these. Let me know what you think about this. Obviously, the intro is going to be much short. I was just kind of introducing it. I'll think of something to name the series. It might just be Who's Better, something along those lines. And I'll just, if you guys enjoy it, I'll ask for feedback and everything. And then I can keep going with the series. Maybe make them shorter. Maybe do like 5-minute videos and make them like 5 players in 5 minutes. 5 comparisons in 5 minutes. And just run with that. I think that might be a decent concept. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.